Alongside the manuscripts, we have Mayan murals and architectural structures, and their writings reveal a strong cultural emphasis on music and dance. In 1943, authorities in Brazil apprehended several men attempting to rob a museum, during which they uncovered a rock crystal skull. Upon questioning, it was revealed that these individuals were Germans affiliated with the SS, specifically connected to Ahnenerbe, a secret society within the SS that consisted of the most devoted members closely aligned with Himmler. The Ahnenerbe organization sought magical artifacts worldwide to link National Socialist ideology with ancestral traditions and ancient mystical practices. As mentioned in the video about the Cathars, Germans excavated the suburbs of Carcassonne in France in search of the Holy Grail, and operatives were dispatched to Brazil to retrieve 13 Mayan crystal skulls. Legend has it that gathering these 13 skulls would grant the collector dominion over the world and mastery over time and space. I will discuss skulls in more detail later, but as you've noticed, this video focuses on the Mayan civilization. Hello? The Mayans were indeed a distinctive society. While we have gathered substantial information about them, our understanding remains limited. The literature, documentaries, and research available on the Mayan civilization are often contentious, blending archaeology, ethnography, and various conspiracy theories. Today, we will explore these theories, and I must admit that I personally subscribe to one of them. As a history enthusiast and an inquisitive individual like many of you, I find the origins and fate of the Maya to be a profound mystery. Most explanations I've encountered regarding the collapse of their civilization seem unlikely to me. The Maya were a distinctive civilization that primarily inhabited areas of present-day Mexico, including Yucatan, Campeche, Tabasco, and Chiapas, as well as parts of Guatemala, Belize, and Honduras. Unlike empires or nation-states such as England, France, or the Arab Caliphate, the Maya comprised a collective of city-states, each governed by its own leaders. These cities could be viewed as kingdoms or counties. The terminology is less important than the fact that they functioned as independent entities. Each city-state had a high ruler and a high priest, and together they shared a common culture over an extended period. They engaged in trade and conflict, leading to significant developments while leaving behind more mysteries than historical artifacts. Historians generally agree that the Mayan civilization dates back to as early as the 3rd millennium BC, indicating its ancient origins. Most historians categorize the progression of Maya civilization into 3 distinct periods: Preclassical, Classical, and Post-Classical. The Preclassical period spans from 2000 BC to 250 AD. During this time, city-states emerged, and the Maya developed agricultural techniques, cultivating essential crops like maize, corn, and cacao beans, leading to abundant harvests. At this stage, the Maya were influenced by the Olmec civilization, a society about which we know even less than we do about the Maya. Apart from the well-known tequila, the Olmecs are recognized for their colossal stone heads, discovered by archaeologists. This civilization represented a historical state whose origins and eventual decline remain unknown. Historians remain uncertain about certain aspects of this period. During the Preclassical era, southern Maya trading cities like El Mirador and Tikal began to flourish. This was also when the iconic pyramids were constructed, such as the one in El Mirador. For instance, Chichen Itza features varying stone block work, with some blocks finely crafted while others are rough-hewn, and certain pyramids are adorned with a layer of burnt clay resembling bricks. Amid the jungles, remarkable structures began to emerge, showcasing a level of craftsmanship akin to modern standards. Time is one of our most valuable resources. In large cities, however, it often slips away in traffic, especially during the hectic days leading up to New Year's Eve. The Maya began to delve into astronomy, using their pyramids to study the night sky and develop astronomical calendars. In December 2012, a widespread frenzy occurred when many believed it marked the end of the world, according to the Mayan calendar, which seemed to conclude at that time. In Russia, for example, many stocked up on water and non-perishable food despite COVID-19 being unheard of then. This panic was exacerbated by media and conspiracy theories, leading some individuals to hoard supplies. Amid fears of an impending apocalypse, people rushed to purchase water despite the uncertainty of future events like volcanic eruptions or floods. Interestingly, among all the ancient cultures in North and South America, only the Maya developed a sophisticated writing system during the Preclassical period. This script was distinctive as it was not based on an alphabet. Although the Spanish later attempted to adapt Mayan writing into the Latin alphabet, its origins were not alphabetical at all. The script comprises hieroglyphics, some of which depict people while others resemble animals. A Russian scientist named Knorosov later deciphered this writing, demonstrating that the symbols represented sounds rather than alphabetical letters, making their writing phonetic. By combining the sounds of several hieroglyphs, we can decode the words and grasp the entire system of meanings. This knowledge forms the foundation of our understanding of the Maya during the Preclassical period. The Maya developed a sophisticated calendar system that included a ritual calendar, a lunar calendar, and a solar calendar. They also created a written language in the form of hieroglyphs and constructed temples adorned with these symbols. Moreover, they built tombs where they placed offerings such as bracelets and various goods for those interred there, similar to the ritual practices surrounding Egyptian pharaohs. This similarity prompted theorists and researchers to explore connections between Maya pyramids and their Egyptian counterparts. Additionally, the Maya developed a mathematical system that included a symbol for zero, distinguishing them from civilizations like the Romans and Greeks. This achievement raises questions about their innovative capabilities during the Preclassical period. The Classical period followed, stretching from 325 AD to 925 AD. During this time, the Maya united into a federation of influential city-states governed by a clear hierarchy, including a supreme ruler and priest. This era yielded significant literary works, and Mayan texts emerged that reveal their advancements in architecture, stone carving, ceramics, and applied arts. Transitioning from their earlier development as a highland civilization, the Maya now established themselves in the plains. There is speculation that a natural disaster prompted the Maya to migrate from the mountains to the plains, where their impressive tall temples and massive pyramids flourished, becoming significant tourist attractions in Mexico. During this time, the Maya experienced an interregnum marked by changes in leadership, alongside a phase of prosperity followed by decline in the classical period. This account represents the official historical narrative, largely shaped by 20th century historians. While we cannot confirm its absolute accuracy, I am presenting the general consensus. The classical period marks the time when the Maya reached their peak. The following era is the post-classical period, during which events become more complex. Official historical accounts indicate that the Maya faced resource depletion, agricultural decline, urban overpopulation, and epidemics, all exacerbated by invasions from the Toltecs. As a result, the Maya population dwindled and their cities began to decline. The final center of Yucatecan and Mayan culture was Chichen Itza, which I mentioned earlier. During this time, the Maya began to abandon their cities, leading to widespread decay and depopulation. Initially, they fought among themselves before engaging in conflict with the Toltecs, who eventually absorbed them. This post-classical period spanned from 900 AD to 1500 AD. By the year 1500, we can definitively identify the key events taking place as the Spanish invasion of Latin America began. Christopher Columbus set sail in search of a trade route to India, but instead stumbled upon America, encountering native populations for the first time. The initial civilizations he met were the Aztecs and the Incas, while the Maya were already in decline. Stories of their past splendor endured in folklore as people began exploring their abandoned stone cities. The Spanish began exploring the newly discovered lands and exporting goods, particularly silver. The native populations posed little threat to the Spaniards, who were equipped with muskets, artillery, and horses, while the indigenous peoples had no horses and lacked effective defenses. The Aztecs, Incas, and remaining Mayans could not organize a competent resistance. They primarily armed themselves with wooden spears tipped with sharpened stones. In battles, thousands of native warriors faced off against small groups of Spanish conquistadors, often resulting in devastating defeats for the natives. The narrative shifts further as the Spaniards viewed the Incas, Aztecs, and Mayans primarily as barbarians due to their practice of human sacrifice and pagan beliefs. From their perspective, the solution was to convert these groups to Catholicism. As the conquistadors advanced, Spanish missionaries accompanied them to spread their faith. Following their defeat, native leaders began to initiate peaceful interactions with the Spanish, paving the way for the two cultures to engage and learn from one another. The earliest reference to the Mayan civilization is found in the writings of Spanish Bishop Diego de Landa, who arrived in Latin America with the aim of spreading Christianity. Disturbed by the prevalent paganism, he sought to convert the indigenous population to Catholicism. However, resistance from the natives led to the flourishing of the Inquisition across these lands, resulting in the execution of tribal chiefs and priests for their continued worship of pagan deities. The Spanish persistently attempted to engage with the natives and encourage their conversion to Catholicism. Our understanding of the Mayan civilization primarily stems from The History of Yucatan, a work by Bishop Diego de Landa. This book serves as the foundational source for the earliest European accounts of the Maya. In it, the Spaniards describe the indigenous people of Latin America as strong, resilient, and remarkably clean. Mayan beauty standards were quite intriguing. Men adorned their faces with vibrant red mixtures, likely a blend of clay and rock powder, which was believed to enhance masculinity. They also applied fragrances from aromatic plants to their bodies. For women, beauty ideals included crossed eyes. While some individuals are naturally born with this trait, it was actively sought after. Young Mayan girls would wear small jade and rubber balls suspended from their hair between their eyebrows, encouraging them to gaze at the objects and subsequently cross their eyes. This feature was highly regarded within Mayan culture. Men in Mayan society typically wore short skirts and snug capes crafted from agave fibers and the feathers of rare birds, reflecting a distinct cultural style. The image of a strong-bodied man dressed in a leather or agave skirt, with his face painted red, epitomizes the masculine nature of this culture, characterized by significant machismo. Men adorn themselves with an array of jewelry, including numerous bracelets. Historians suggest that the large gold bracelets worn on their arms and legs served more as supports for ligaments than as mere decoration, similar to how athletes use wristbands today for stability during competitions. Additionally, men valued jewelry made from emeralds, turquoise, and jade, the latter of which was also coveted in China. Instead of shoes, Mayan men wore sandals. A crucial element of a man's household was the mirror, implying that men took great care in their appearance before stepping out, akin to modern influencers. They would spend time applying face paint, donning bracelets, and checking their reflection before going about their activities with their crossed-eyed wives. According to Mayan manuscripts, modesty was considered the ultimate virtue for women. However, there were specific expectations. For instance, if a woman gazed at a man in a suggestive manner, she might face punishment by having pepper smudged on her eyes. The Mayans were not a particularly peace-loving society. Instead, their laws and customs were quite harsh. Their political structure revolved around tribal chiefs, with each city-state governed by its own king or supreme ruler, to whom all citizens were expected to submit. Mayan city-states frequently engaged in warfare, primarily to pillage neighboring territories and enslave their populations rather than to gain land. Slavery was an entrenched practice within their society. The high priest held a central role, leveraging astronomical texts and observations of Venus, a planet of great significance to the Maya, to determine optimal planting and harvesting times, and even predict the genders of chiefs' offspring. Additionally, the priest would invoke rain through human sacrifices. The Spanish rationalized their brutal actions, such as the burning and torturing of indigenous people, by claiming that the natives were even more cruel. They witnessed horrific sacrificial rituals where young boys were cut open alive at the top of pyramids, with their still beating hearts removed and cast down the steps as offerings to deities like the god of war, the god of rain, or Kukulkan, a prominent Mayan deity revered as a feathered serpent, also known as Quetzalcoatl, among the Aztecs. Upon observing these acts, the Spanish concluded, "These people are monsters. Why should we feel sympathy for them?" One notable Mayan ritual was a ball game, reminiscent of a commercial from the 1986 World Cup in Mexico, featuring Mayans playing with a ball. While many details are lost to history, we know that it involved two teams competing on a stone court with the objective of getting the ball into an opening in the wall. The game combined elements of football and basketball. Some manuscripts indicate players were forbidden from using their hands, employing other body parts instead. However, other sources suggest that various body parts could be utilized. A well-documented aspect of the game is that the losing team faced execution, as their sacrifice was believed essential to invoke rain for the community. As previously noted, the Mayans engaged in trade via both river and land routes, as evidenced by archaeological finds of boats used for travel and commerce. In their hierarchical society, the aristocracy controlled all valuable resources, including crops, jade, and emeralds, leaving common people with little to no access, common in both tribal and feudal systems. Another practice involved tossing young girls into a deep well and waiting to see who could climb out. Those who survived, typically 1 out of 5, were believed to have communicated with spirits while submerged. In a trance-like state, they would relay messages from below, such as omens about droughts or warnings for the chief regarding warfare plans. Many contemporary practices, such as ayahuasca ceremonies and rituals led by forest shamans, often embraced by the wealthy and famous, have roots in ancient Mayan traditions. Shamanism thrived during that time, with shamans creating extracts from tree roots and mushrooms. They played a significant role in developing ayahuasca, a narcotic brew believed to produce effects similar to LSD. While I haven't tried it myself, this is what I've gathered about its effects. In this trance state, priests among the Maya would foresee the future, a practice that was well documented by the Spanish who witnessed these rituals. Bishop Diego de Landa arrived in Yucatan in 1549 with the conquistadors and is a key figure in our understanding of the Maya, although he also destroyed many of their artifacts. Today, only 4 Mayan codices, the Madrid, Paris, Dresden, and Grolier scrolls, remain. These manuscripts were written on papyrus and stored in cases covered with jaguar skins, providing us with some of the earliest insights into Mayan civilization. Unfortunately, most other records were lost to fire. One day, the Spanish conducted a mass execution, tying unfortunate Mayans to stakes and setting them ablaze, while also torturing priests. The only Mayans who interacted with the Spanish were the scribes, who occupied a relatively high social status within their culture, though comparing them to IT specialists may seem odd. They were the keepers of knowledge, passing it down through generations. The Spanish recruited these scribes, teaching them both Spanish and their own dialects. This marked the beginning of the encroachment and destruction of Mayan civilization by European influences. Diego de Landa did preserve some manuscripts, but he destroyed many other artifacts, including smashing stone statues of Mayan gods and burning numerous writings. I realize I initially mixed up the materials. The Mayan manuscripts were written on tree bark, not papyrus, which was used by the Egyptians. The surviving codices represent only a small portion of their original body of work. However, the Spanish were unable to obliterate all the inscriptions on temple walls or erase all the paintings. These artworks provide insight into chiefs' feasts and various rituals, showcasing the astonishing knowledge that the Mayans possessed. The Mayans developed a remarkable understanding of astronomy, comparable to modern knowledge, by utilizing pyramids, poles, and threads. They recognized that the stars, sun, and moon followed an astronomical cycle, which influenced their method of tracking years. This resulted in a chronological calendar. Unlike our 12 zodiac constellations, the Mayans identified 13. For instance, the boar corresponds to Sagittarius, the stag matches Capricorn, and the monkey aligns with Aquarius. The jaguar is linked to Pisces, though it's unclear why, since fish were also prevalent in their region. Their squirrel represents Aries, while the frog aligns with Scorpio, parrot with Libra, and the snake, or feathered serpent, relates to Virgo. The owl corresponds to Leo. In Mayan astrology, what we refer to as the constellation Cancer was represented by the scorpion, while Gemini was called the turtle, and Taurus was known as the rattlesnake. They also recognized a 13th sign, Ophiuchus, which is often surrounded by myth in modern discussions. For the Mayans, this sign was the bat. They calculated the year to be 365 days long. It's intriguing, since this civilization is much older than once thought. In fact, many of their remarkable structures seem to have been built by an earlier culture. Additionally, they accurately determined the moon's orbital period around the Earth without telescopes or advanced mathematical knowledge. The Mayans were pioneers in establishing the most precise chronological system of any ancient civilization. Their calendar comprised 269 days, organized into a week of 13 days. The Mayan calendar was influenced by the cycles of pregnancy, linking it to the rhythm of life. Their architecture relied heavily on mathematics, as demonstrated by the precision in constructing their pyramids. A central spiritual concept for the Maya was serving the universe, with a strong emphasis on the cult of time. Additionally, they had remarkable expertise in seismology, meteorology, and geodesics, allowing them to analyze soil compositions and predict impending earthquakes. The Mayans had a fascinating understanding of medicine. They were able to treat broken bones effectively, often using medicinal herbs to provide anesthesia, which patients inhaled as smoke. Although the exact sources are unclear, possibly mushrooms or opiates, they successfully performed procedures like tumor removal. Additionally, the Mayans practiced cranial trepanation and demonstrated knowledge of contagious diseases. They placed significant importance on personal hygiene and were aware of how epidemics could arise, which is quite remarkable. The greatest tragedy for the indigenous peoples was not solely the Spanish invasion or their military efforts, but rather the diseases they introduced. The Spaniards brought with them smallpox, chickenpox, various intestinal ailments, and venereal diseases, which were devastating to the native populations who had never encountered conditions like syphilis. It raises a mystery about how these ancient civilizations could perform complex medical procedures, such as tumor removal, and accurately determine that the year consisted of 365 days. Mayan culture placed significant importance on music, which was essential for the entertainment of the aristocracy and for rituals. Dance served not only as a form of celebration, but also as a magical rite. Their worship of the gods involved intricate practices, including burning medicinal herbs, entering trance states, and dancing while in that altered state. Tattoos held significant cultural importance among the Mayans, but they were primarily worn by the upper classes, including priests and devout believers. While these individuals demonstrated advanced medical knowledge through procedures like cranial trepanation and the use of anesthesia, it seems paradoxical that they did not apply similar techniques to alleviate the pain of tattooing. Nonetheless, this reflects a well-established aspect of Mayan civilization. The Mayans developed various musical instruments, including drums, flutes, and primitive trumpets. Music and dance were integral to their events, feasts, and ritualistic worship, all of which were highly valued in their culture. However, the most shocking aspect for the Spanish was the practice of religious sacrifice. As previously noted regarding their ball games, players might strike the ball with different body parts, sometimes only with thighs, feet, or shoulders. Additionally, some individuals were buried alive as a means to connect with underground spirits. Rather than being viewed as punishment, sacrifice was seen as a profound honor, signifying that one was chosen by the gods. The Mayan gods were quite unusual. They were not solely immortal, as representations depict them as both elderly and childlike. This suggests that they were viewed as mortal beings who could be killed, a concept present in Mayan mythology. The Maya believed in multiple realms, including the world of the living, a heavenly realm, and an underworld. To reach heaven, one had to successfully navigate 13 challenging trials, according to their religious teachings. This is why the game is likened to football. It involved a rubber ball, and the indigenous people had the skills to produce rubber and utilize resin to create various items. While it may not represent a formal understanding of chemistry, their ability to transform raw resin into solid rubber and mold it into functional objects is certainly impressive. In conclusion, let's wrap up the discussion on human sacrifices. When one Mayan tribe triumphed over another, the war captives who were not enslaved or made concubines were often sacrificed, similar to the practices of the Aztecs and Incas. However, these executions served as symbolic acts. Unlike the sacrifices of individuals from their own tribe, which were seen as great honors and involved rituals such as being thrown from a pyramid, these were regarded as sacrifices of enemy prisoners. This distinction highlights what we understand about their customs. In summary, the Mayans were a sophisticated civilization that erected numerous temples in the jungle before ultimately disappearing. By the time the Spanish arrived, their society was already in decline. They excelled in fields such as medicine, astronomy, and mathematics, yet they lacked the means to defend themselves effectively. It's perplexing to consider that while they could calculate the cycles of Venus, the Sun, and the Moon, their military seemed poorly equipped for protection. There is a theory proposed by the American scholar Thompson, which suggests that the Mayan civilization was superior to all others, asserting that they lacked weapons because they were pioneers in promoting a peaceful society. However, this claim seems highly implausible, as conflict is a natural behavior observed among animals, insects, and humans throughout history. This makes the theory difficult to accept, and ultimately, Thompson himself abandoned it later on. We have only begun to scratch the surface of one of the key contradictions that render this entire narrative difficult to accept. I will elaborate on these shortly. After the Spanish conquest of Latin America, the most intriguing developments from a European perspective unfolded. One of the most renowned conquistadors, Hernán Cortés, who conquered the Aztecs in 1525, launched an expedition to invade Honduras, where several tribes were resisting Spanish control. Eventually, Cortés arrives at the border of the last Mayan state, Tayasal, also known as Lake City. The local chiefs offer him a warm welcome, allowing him to take a rest there. His forces not only include Spaniards, but also Aztec allies. On February 28th, he accuses several Aztec leaders of plotting against him and has them executed by hanging. Following this incident, he relaxes in the city, where he is graciously received by the Mayans, and they celebrate with feasting for a few days. However, Cortés's horse is injured from a leg injury sustained during a deer hunt. He turns to the Mayan chiefs and asks, "I'm heading to war, so please look after my beloved horse while I'm gone." As Cortés continues his journey to Honduras, the Mayans take on the responsibility of caring for the horse. Nearly a century later, knowledge of the Mayans fades into obscurity. Nearly a century later, Spanish missionaries arrive at Lake State to find a city still inhabited by the last of the Mayans, complete with its ruler and high priests practicing their pagan beliefs. The missionaries promptly initiate efforts to convert the population to Catholicism. While exploring, they discover a monument dedicated to a horse, which infuriates the monks. They condemn it as a form of animal worship, referring to it as the worst kind of paganism, and proceed to destroy the monument. In response, the Mayans forcefully reject their presence, exclaiming, "We don't need your bearded god. We will kill you if you return." The missionaries, returning with an army, discover that the city had once been visited by Cortés, who had left his horse behind. Lacking knowledge of horse care, the Mayans began treating it as if it were an aristocrat, feeding it wine and meat, which ultimately led to the horse's death. Believing that Cortés would return, they decided to create a monument in its honor and deified the horse, worshiping it for a century. A century later, the Spanish discover the monument and proceed to destroy it, marking the beginning of a significant mystery. Since the late 16th century, the Mayans slipped into obscurity. While some pyramids in Latin America were acknowledged, Spanish colonial activities took precedence. As Spain faced various challenges, including conflicts with England and increasing pirate activity, the world seemed to forget about the Mayans entirely. They remained hidden from history until the 19th century. In 1840, two Americans, John Lloyd Stevens and Frederick Catherwood, journeyed to Yucatan, Mexico, where they began to explore the region. While trekking through the jungle, they discovered remarkable stone structures. With photography still not invented, Catherwood, a talented artist, created sketches of these awe-inspiring sights. Both men were absolutely astonished by their findings. They embarked on extensive explorations, visiting more than 40 notable cities, including Palenque and Uxmal. During their journey, they uncovered pyramids and meticulously sketched various stone statues and carvings, including depictions of the flying serpent. Their illustrations reached Europe, sparking an obsession with the Maya civilization, which had constructed pyramids akin to those in Egypt. Consequently, European scholars became fervently interested, leading to a surge of expeditions to Mexico. In 1861, a significant discovery occurred when French scientist Brasseur de Bourbourg published a manuscript titled Popol Vuh. This text, originally taken by the Spanish, vanished in Europe, but was rediscovered in the early 18th century. After being translated into Spanish, de Bourbourg then rendered it into French, revealing it to be one of the oldest texts concerning the creation of the world, authored by the Mayans. The manuscript was later loosely translated into Russian by poet Konstantin Balmont, who named it Snake Flowers, with its publication occurring in Russia in 1910. The publication of de Bourbourg's book reignited excitement, as its age was uncertain. It might even predate the Bible. The text includes a narrative about a journey to the underworld that bears resemblance to Greek myths surrounding Hades, the god of death. This revelation highlights the Mayans as a civilization rich in religious beliefs and a vast pantheon of deities. Exploration expeditions to Mexico commenced, led by notable figures like Edward Herbert Thompson, who investigated the sacred cenotes. These are caverns and water-filled land depressions. Arriving in Mexico in 1910, Thompson learned from locals that their ancestors believed people were sacrificed by being thrown into the cenotes. However, the locals themselves dismissed these tales as mere myths. Wearing a diving suit and oxygen mask, he dove into the murky water. With his team, he discovered human bones at the bottom, along with pottery, rings, and jewelry, confirming the site as a place of sacrifice. They uncovered not only women's remains, part of the myth stating that only virgin girls were sacrificed, but also bones of men and children. This discovery reinforced the idea that these cenotes served as sacrificial sites, generating much excitement over the significant find. Then, another prominent figure emerged, John Eric Thompson, an Englishman who became a leading authority on Mayan civilization. He began investigating various Mayan cities and was the first to explore the remarkable temple of Chichen Itza, which quickly gained fame for its impressive architecture. These steps lead to the Temple of Kukulkan, the god of the air, known as the Flying Serpent. The significant discovery is that twice a year, during the spring and autumn equinoxes, the pyramid steps cast shadows that align with the serpent's head, creating an optical illusion. This play of light gives the impression that the serpent descends during one equinox and ascends during the other, linking the phenomenon to rituals related to these seasonal events. Above, as part of the ritual, someone's heart was removed and cast down, timed precisely with the sun to create specific shadow patterns. Each year, the serpent was believed to descend and then ascend. The Mayans gathered at the pyramid must have felt immense excitement as the serpent seemingly came to life before them. Thompson begins his exploration of this civilization, becoming the first to examine their pottery and manuscripts. He attempts to decipher their language, but is unsuccessful. He develops his own theory, utilizing the book by Bishop Diego de Landa, which offers a rudimentary translation of Mayan hieroglyphs into the Latin alphabet. However, his efforts to decipher the text are largely unsuccessful. Thompson proposed an unconventional idea that this civilization did not engage in warfare, as there were no stone carvings depicting violence. However, later discoveries included such depictions, prompting critics to question him, to which he responded that they must be of a religious nature and insisted that the society lacked weapons, as noted by the Spanish. Nevertheless, it was clear that warfare did occur, leading to challenges against Thompson's theory. As exploration in Mexico intensifies, scandals arise due to the illegal removal of artifacts from the country. These items are smuggled to England and the U.S., prompting the Mexican government to intervene. However, their efforts to combat this issue often prove ineffective. Thompson increasingly dominates the field of Mayan studies, rejecting Knorosov's 1950s deciphering of the Mayan alphabet as nonsense, claiming it to be a fabrication by Soviet communists. He insists that only his own theory is valid, despite his respected status in the academic community. Thompson's most significant accomplishment is the excavation and reconstruction of the unique Warriors Temple at Chichen Itza. Interestingly, when Queen Elizabeth visited Mexico, Thompson served as her guide, overseeing the visit. During this occasion, he conducted a ritual in accordance with ancient Mayan traditions in her presence. It was an exceedingly hot day, resembling a drought, when he performed the ritual, praying to the gods for rain. Miraculously, it began to rain, prompting everyone to exclaim in admiration, "What an impressive man! He has truly mastered Mayan magical rituals." The exploration of this civilization commences with excavations uncovering stone carvings, frescoes, and pyramids, gradually revealing the Mayan cities from beneath the earth. I am not endorsing any conspiracy theories regarding these excavated cities. However, it is true that the Mayan cities and their pyramids were indeed excavated from the ground. Thompson offers detailed accounts of the Mayan civilization, detailing the governance of their city-states, the roles of high rulers and priests, their agricultural practices, and cultural aspects. He creates a comprehensive portrayal of their society, which later became known as the Thompson system. For most of his life, he advocated for his vision of an egalitarian society, believing that the Mayan priests and aristocracy were so advanced that they refrained from engaging in warfare, understanding that civilization can only progress through peaceful means. When shown stone reliefs depicting shackled prisoners, one with a knife in his back, he dismissed these interpretations, asserting that they were not related to warfare, but rather represented astronomical rituals. He suggested that these figures were possibly sacrificial participants, maintaining that the Mayans did not engage in wars. Eventually, he conceded that his theories could not withstand scrutiny. A pivotal discovery was made by Mexican scientist Alberto Ruz, who unearthed the tomb of a Mayan chief, Pakal, in 1952 while exploring the Temple of Inscriptions in Palenque. The Temple of Inscriptions is quite renowned for its wall inscriptions and stone reliefs. However, he discovers a concealed chamber reminiscent of scenes from Harry Potter. Upon realizing that this secret room connects to a gallery, he faces skepticism. Yet, as they inspect the walls, they uncover a hidden passageway and eventually begin to excavate. They uncover a hidden passage leading deep into the cave, where they discover a tomb. Previously, scientists had assumed that while Egyptian pyramids served as burial sites for pharaohs, Mayan pyramids were exclusively religious and astronomical structures with no burials. He uncovers the tomb of Chief Pakal, which contains a death mask and jade jewelry, confirming that it is indeed the burial site of a powerful ruler who engaged in warfare. This discovery proves to be pivotal in understanding the Mayan civilization. The wall paintings provide scientists with additional evidence of Mayan civilization, and this discovery dramatically shifts global perceptions of the Maya. However, the most significant advancement arises from Yuri Knorosov's work in deciphering the Mayan alphabet. This tale captivates me personally, even more so than the broader mysteries surrounding the Mayan civilization itself. A Soviet scientist who had never left the USSR meticulously studied books and copies of Mayan manuscripts. He proposed a hypothesis, suggesting that the Mayan alphabet does not align with Latin or any other alphabet, but is instead phonetic. In his model, two hieroglyphs combined produce sounds that signify turtle, although this is a simplification of a much more intricate system. In 1952, he announced his findings, which were backed by the Soviet Union, claiming that the USSR had deciphered the Mayan alphabet. However, Western scholars, led by Thompson, quickly dismissed his work, motivated by a desire to validate their own research and retain exclusive credit for discoveries. As support for Knorosov's research grew, it became evident that the Mayan alphabet had indeed been deciphered by a Soviet scientist who had never even seen the original manuscripts. This raised the question of how Egyptian scripts were cracked, which relied on clues like the Rosetta Stone and encryption keys. In contrast, Knorosov utilized a purely mathematical approach, merging linguistics and mathematics to achieve this remarkable breakthrough. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, Knorosov traveled to Latin America, where he was awarded the Mexican Order of the Eagle and saw the pyramids for the first time. Known for his private nature, he rarely gave interviews, which led many to wonder how he was able to decipher the Mayan script without direct access to the artifacts. Yet, he accomplished this remarkable feat regardless. This brings us to the realm of conspiracy theories. Instead of jumping to conclusions, let's pose a few questions. First, consider that a civilization capable of constructing massive pyramids and developing an accurate calendar, as well as advanced medical knowledge, did not invent the wheel. Historians often attribute this to the absence of horses for harnessing. However, buffalo and deer were available and could have been used for farming. Ultimately, the Maya remained without the wheel. This civilization constructed astonishing structures and possessed remarkable knowledge, yet they lacked effective means of self-defense. Armed with only spears featuring sharp stone tips, they resembled a primitive tribal society when the Spanish arrived. This striking contradiction, where a seemingly primitive society exhibited knowledge almost akin to that of the 21st century, deeply confounds me. Consider a straightforward example: China. While ancient Rome was a significant civilization that eventually fell, leading humanity into the darkness of the Middle Ages, development did not completely cease. People continued to construct cities and castles, cultivate the land, and engage in trade. Moreover, money re-emerged, drawing inspiration from Roman practices. The Frankish state implemented Salic law, which was influenced by Roman law, highlighting a degree of continuity during this period. Consider this scenario. When the Spanish arrived in Latin America, they encountered magnificent pyramids. It's likely that knowledge about these structures and their construction methods would have quickly been transmitted back to Europe. Similarly, when European traders visited China and observed the construction of pagodas and the production of porcelain, those elements became highly sought after. The chinoiserie style, a Western interpretation of Chinese design, gained popularity in Europe. I believe a comparable fascination would have arisen among the Spanish regarding the pyramids. I believe this did not happen for a specific reason. When the Spanish inquired, "Dear Mayans, how did you construct these structures?" The Mayans simply shrugged and replied, "Our ancestors built them. They fought in wars when they weren't busy constructing temples." It's baffling how these enormous stones were transported. Take the Great Pyramid of Cholula as an example. From a distance, it appears to be simply a hill topped with a Catholic church, but it is actually the largest pyramid in the world by area, albeit not the tallest. It's clear that such an impressive structure could not have been constructed by a society composed of people armed only with stone spears. It seems inconceivable that a civilization capable of building such pyramids could not develop the wheel. I haven't had the chance to see the Mexican pyramids, so let me share a different example. Angkor Wat in Cambodia stands out as one of the most remarkable wonders of the world for me. This ancient stone city, hidden in the jungle, was rediscovered and excavated by archaeologists. It's evident that the current Cambodian inhabitants are not descendants of the civilization that constructed it. The steps of the temple are notably spaced apart, suggesting they were made for very tall individuals. Even for someone of my height, it was challenging to climb those steps, indicating that it was built by a distinct civilization. Where did this other civilization originate? The Aztecs, Mayans, and Incas all documented in their manuscripts that the gods came from across the sea, teaching people agriculture, bringing fire, and instructing them on how to construct magnificent pyramids. Why did these deities arrive by sea? Their narratives describe a history marked by 3 suns. One civilization was wiped out by a flood, another by the sun's heat, and a third by yet another cataclysm. Notably, the flood is the earliest disaster mentioned in their myths, reminiscent of accounts found in the Bible. What motivated them to construct those pyramids? What prompted their desire to reach greater heights? Not to mention, these structures were built with remarkable mathematical precision. Were they observing the sky, or could they possibly have served as some form of spaceports? The possibilities are intriguing. Alternatively, perhaps they were designed as large emergency shelters. Given the fear of another flood, people might have built these tall pyramids to provide a safe refuge above the rising waters. Quetzalcoatl, also known as Kukulkan, is depicted as a flying serpent god with blonde hair and a beard. This is striking because the indigenous chiefs, including the Mayan leaders, did not have beards. Why does he appear this way? This brings to mind the legend of Atlantis, a civilization said to have been destroyed by a natural disaster. Some surviving priests reportedly spread across the world, sharing knowledge of civilization. While I'm not endorsing these myths, it's evident that the widely accepted historical timeline is flawed. These pyramids were constructed by an unknown civilization, and the timeline of their creation remains unclear. Moreover, the Mayans abruptly disappeared, likely due to a natural disaster such as a drought. In the 21st century, scientists will perform astronomical calculations suggesting that a drought did not occur during that period. The Mayans first descended from the mountains to the plains and then simply vanished. Civilizations do not disappear without a trace. There should be evidence of destruction, conflict, or disease. Yet no such evidence exists. Civilizational cultures and knowledge typically evolve consistently across all aspects of life, including medicine, religion, culture, family dynamics, and military affairs. The most astonishing aspect is the inconsistency of artifacts. Picture this. We might invent smartphones while living without clothing, eating with bare hands, and lacking basic household items, yet possessing knowledge about the planet Venus. It simply doesn't add up and makes no sense to me. It seems clear that the present-day inhabitants of the region, whom the Spanish encountered upon their arrival, are not the descendants of the Mayan civilization that erected the pyramids. The origins of these people and their population size remain uncertain. It appears there weren't many, as they only imparted their knowledge to a limited number of individuals. It's puzzling why they never experienced a second golden age. The situation appears absurd and implausible. A civilization that constructed impressive pyramids suddenly disappears. This also applies to ancient Egypt, which is better understood, though not significantly so. Nonetheless, these occurrences in various parts of the world are truly astonishing. As Europeans, we are heirs to a rich civilization whose origins we can trace back to the times of the Huns and Vikings. In contrast, the Mayans lack a similar lineage. Their gods visited, created, imparted knowledge, and then vanished, despite being mortal. Numerous peculiarities arise, such as the tomb of Pakal discovered by Alberto Rus. Inside, there was a sarcophagus adorned with well-known imagery, one of which resembles a man in a spacesuit. This serves as a compelling argument for the theory that those who built the pyramids might have come from space after all. If you ever plan a trip to Guatemala or Mexico, I have a list of must-see destinations featuring the most important pyramids built by the Mayans. One is the Landa Pyramid in El Mirador, Guatemala, standing at an impressive 72 meters. Another noteworthy site is the Pyramid of the Sun, located 40 kilometers from Mexico City. Historians estimate its construction dates back to the 2nd century AD, and it stands just slightly shorter than Landa at 71 meters. The third pyramid is the 70-meter Pyramid of Pakal, believed to be dedicated to the 27th ruler of the city. While it's not well preserved, its height of 71 meters is still impressive. On top of the hill, there is a Catholic church, and for years, archaeologists thought the surrounding stone ridges were natural formations or remnants of earlier structures. However, using modern analytical techniques, it was revealed that these ridges are actually part of a massive pyramid, the largest in the world by total area. The El Tigre Pyramid, located in Guatemala, stands 55 meters tall. Another notable pyramid, known as Structure 1, is situated in Calakmul, Mexico, also measuring 55 meters in height. This multifunctional structure's purpose remains unclear, but it's reasonable to assume it wasn't constructed without significance. Additionally, the Pyramid of Kaan in Caracol, Belize, features multiple levels and reaches a height of 43 meters, making it another impressive sight. The Pyramid of the Moon, standing at 42 meters, closely resembles Egyptian pyramids, suggesting a stark, almost futuristic appearance reminiscent of structures from Star Wars. Sharing the same height is the Nohoch Mul Pyramid, also 42 meters tall, which was constructed around 900 AD according to historians, and it similarly echoes the design of Egyptian pyramids. Lastly, there's the iconic Pyramid of Kukulkan, frequently seen on postcards. While it measures only 30 meters tall and isn't the tallest pyramid on this list, intriguing legends circulate about glimpsing Kukulkan, the god of wind, as he descends and ascends. Archaeologists continue to investigate this pyramid, discovering a wide array of Mayan artifacts, solidifying its fame as a significant site. This leads us to the crystal skulls I mentioned earlier. The narrative surrounding the 13 skulls began in 1927, when English archaeologist Albert Mitchell Hedges unearthed the first of these crystal artifacts. Although many more skulls have been identified, this moment marks the start of the story. It remains unknown how these skulls were crafted. One noteworthy skull resides in the British Museum, which is not linked to Mitchell Hedges, but rather to a French antique dealer named Eugène Bobin. He reportedly acquired it from an individual knowledgeable about shamanistic rituals who claimed that the skull dates back to before Columbus and was utilized by the Mayans. The skulls are said to contain the essence of the god Kukulkan, offering glimpses into events like floods, earthquakes, and even apocalyptic occurrences, particularly if all 13 are gathered. Each skull is intricately designed with various holes that create fascinating light patterns when exposed to illumination. These light columns are thought to allow for divination. One of the skulls is even rumored to have healing properties. It was reportedly possessed by a woman with a brain tumor who, after touching it and keeping it nearby, found that her tumor had vanished. The creation of these skulls remains a mystery, as there are no tool marks visible, and they appear to be carved from pure rock crystal. Mitchell later discovered another skull that was initially missing its jaw, which was found later and could be connected to the skull using crystal ball joints, allowing for easy movement. The craftsmanship of the skulls is truly mesmerizing. Despite lacking modern tools like lasers, there are no markings similar to those seen in later artistic creations involving rock crystal, leaving their origins shrouded in uncertainty. Significantly, more than 13 skulls have been discovered, but in 1992, a particular skull emerged that left everyone perplexed. Scientists determined that its twisted shape was not due to external pressure, but was intentionally crafted that way from the start. The force behind this twisting remains a mystery. There is a theory surrounding the creation of these crystal skulls, but it remains enigmatic and unexplained. Recently, an analysis of one of the skulls revealed that it is composed not of crystal, but of quartz, a material that is not native to Mexico. Additionally, tool marks on the skull were traced back to the 19th century, leading to the conclusion that the skull in the British Museum is likely a forgery created by a French antiques dealer, with no authentic connection to the Maya culture. Despite widespread interest, opinions on the 13 skulls remain polarized among scientists and the public. Some view them as enigmatic relics of the Mayan civilization, while others contend that they are forgeries created at a later time. For example, Members of the German Ahnenerbe organization believed that possessing the skulls would grant them global power. This encapsulates the narrative of the Maya, a captivating tale steeped in mystery and intrigue, portraying a remarkable civilization that seemingly emerged from obscurity and disappeared without a trace.